2, 3, 4. Let me tell you about PuckPedia, stats, contracts, and caps. It's all there for you. One-stop shop for your hockey information. It's a hockey sensation. So log on, log on, log on. If you give a puck, go to PuckPedia.com.
Welcome to PuckPedia Cap Central. It is Thursday, February 5th. I am your host, Keith Kavanaugh, alongside Hart, Levine, and Hart. We finally made it to the Olympic roster freeze. How you doing?
Frozen up. We made it.
Well, you're in California at least, so you're not that cold. Whereas like over here on the East Coast, we're actually frozen. I think I saw New York City is going to have like a freeze alert for Saturday night with temperatures getting as low as negative 15 degrees. So that's going to be fun.
Well, I'm from Edmonton, so I've earned this weather. So I don't have any sympathy anymore for people in bad weather. I did my time.
Exactly. And our guy Brian up here said it's also very cold in Boston right now. Obviously some big news happened, and kind of before we get into everything here too, I did want to say, make sure you are subscribed to PuckPedia YouTube page. We had a great episode this past Wednesday with former Los Angeles Kings assistant general manager Mike Futa. He gave some incredible stories about his upbringing, but also a really good NHL draft story. I won't give too much away. I want you guys to tune in, but he had a really good story about how the Kings approached the 2008 NHL draft and, what would have happened if they didn't possibly go with Drew Doughty. Steven Stamkos had a guy in mind over Drew. So great story by Mike and great interview. And, he's on the Fan Hockey Show and does some stuff over with Sportsnet now. He shifted over to the media. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube. You watch all the full episodes there, as well as obviously this show is live on YouTube and X. Whew. All right, let's get into it, Hart.
Let's get into it.
Before we get into the big blockbuster trade, let's talk about this roster freeze that is in effect right now. So that's kind of why you saw some moves happen up until 3 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. So just a quick refresher, Hart, why don't you go through kind of what is exactly allowed, not allowed right now, and what you think some teams might try to do to accrue extra cap space or really maximize kind of this time period?
Yeah, so the obvious one, no trades allowed. Players can be sent down, unlike the holiday freeze. Players can be sent down. But basically, the way to think about it is if the player has kind of a regular been with the team for a while, those are the players that are waiver exempt. Those are the ones that can't be sent down. So if a player's been with the team and played in the last 16 of the last 20 games, or they've been on the roster for 80 days up to last week, they cannot be sent down. So again, guys that have been recently called up, maybe they've only played a few games. Those ones can be sent down at any point during the freeze. They didn't have to be sent down before. I saw some teams put out tweets kind of like last night, which means like they'll be sent down for today for cap purposes. So we'll definitely see some of those waiver exempt players that kind of think of it like this, that aren't regulars. They'll be back down. And then players that need waivers, players can go on waivers during the freeze, and therefore, if a player clears waivers, they can be assigned to the AHL during the freeze. The only caveat is that at this point now, if they're waived and assigned down, the player just doesn't have to report until the 17th, which is basically when all the players are coming back from their vacations and they're going to start practicing. So if a player is waived and sent down, sometime over the freeze, they get to stay on the beach or vacation, and they just have to come back for the 17th, potentially to the minors if they were assigned down. So still some movement can happen. I think to your question, I think we'll see teams even more sending guys down today, especially getting the rosters leaner. Anyone that they can send down, you might as well, because either you want the player to play down there if they would qualify, or you're going to let them take a break, but at least you want them down for cap purposes. And that will allow teams to build up some cap space, what we call accruing some cap space, since they're not playing in the NHL anyways.
Yeah, and I was reading Chris Johnson's article today as well. So you are able to sign contract extensions. So we might see some business on that front during this freeze. And there's also going to be no shortage of general managers over in Milan. If you look at the management groups, Canada will have Doug Armstrong, Jim Nill, Kyle Dubas, Julian Brisebois. U.S. will have Bill Guerin, Bill Zito, Chris Drury, Tom Fitzgerald, Stan Bowman, Jarmo Kakalainen will be over there for Finland. So these GMs are going to be, maybe touching shoulders, talking a little business in addition to managing their workloads for their current teams. And so we'll see kind of what happens over the next little while here. let us get into the big blockbuster news. It's the trade everyone wants to talk about.
Bjugstad.
Broken by Adam Schefter, which everyone expected, right? So it's basically Artemi Panarin got traded finally. It was rumored for weeks that this was going to happen. He got traded to the Los Angeles Kings, a team I don't think a lot of people were speculating is one of the favorites for him to get traded to. But basically, how it worked out is Panarin said that he only really wanted to go to LA and sign an extension with LA, and he had a full no move clause, so he kind of held all the cards in that situation. But LA acquired Panarin with 50% salary retention from the Rangers in exchange for former first-round draft pick Liam Greentree and then a 2026 conditional third-round pick. The condition is the better pick between LA or Dallas's third, and that upgrades to a second, which is the better of LA or Columbus's. If LA wins a playoff round this year, the Rangers also get a 2028 fourth round pick if LA wins 2 playoff rounds this year. So this move gives the Rangers $5.82 million in net annual cap space. I would say the return is generally a little underwhelming is the consensus out here, but the Rangers didn't really have much leverage once they put out the note, once they basically let it get out that Artemi Panarin was not going to be offered a contract extension. They kind of lost all leverage in this situation. Panarin has 57 points in 52 games this season, and he immediately signed a 2-year, $22 million contract extension, $11 million AAV starting next season. Some people did not expect it to be in that low in terms of the total dollar amount. $50 million was the rumored amount he wanted. And then how he spread that over the years was kind of in the camp of the team. But LA now has $8.53 million in current cap space, projected to have $14.4 million in deadline cap space. So they might not be making done making moves. And just quickly on Greentree before I'll get to Hart's analysis here. He's a former 24 first round pick. He has 45 points in 34 games with Windsor in the OHL. And if you go to PuckPedia.com, you'll have all the scouting reports. Our guy, Jason Bukala from Pro Hockey Group, has him projected to be a second line forward. So, Hart, I'll toss it to you here. What are your thoughts on the trade?
I would say the part that's the most surprising to me is that the trade return feels a bit light, and also the contract is a bit light. Going into it, I expected that there would be a real relationship. If the higher the contract that he was getting, I figured if that was the case, if a team was willing to give a really, really big contract and that's where he wanted to go, then it would be kind of the scenario that unfolded where he says, I only want to go there. And therefore the Rangers don't have much leverage to get much in the return. So I thought, if we see this contract and it's like, wow, that's either really long or a lot of dollars or both, that probably meant that he was only giving them one team, and therefore the trade return would be light, and that would make sense. And I figured, like, conversely, if the contract was a little low, that there would be lots of teams willing to pay that contract, and Panarin would be open to those teams, and therefore the Rangers would be able to leverage that into a better trade return. So basically, I thought, like, the higher the contract, the lower the trade return, the lower the contract, the higher the trade return, if that makes sense. So the big surprise to me was that this deal this is definitely the kind of trade you'd expect with the team only has one choice to make a move. And then I was surprised, though, that he was willing to go there and only agree to go to LA for that contract. I saw a report this morning from Elliot Friedman that Seattle offered a much, much bigger contract, right? You have
more than Dreisaitl's, like $14 million AAV.
Yeah. Probably a Carolina you'd think would be like above this 11 million, at least
with cap space,
or at least like maybe more euros at 11 million, right? So so it really seems like he will pick to LA, and then good for LA, then they were firm on their contract, because there was a lot of talk, and I'd heard from a lot of people, the agent was really like kind of trying to get the market going and get things going on the contract, like kind of when you get to UFA, when it's a market and an auction, and that can get teams to obviously pay a lot. You see a lot of teams make mistakes on July 1st. So good for LA and Ken Holland, give them and their cap team there, give them a lot of credit. Like, they stayed firm and negotiated a contract that I think is going to outperform for sure. And so they were able to do that and be the place where he wanted to go. Like, that's a big accomplishment. I think, like, if he was going to sign a 5 times $11 million deal, you'd think, ooh, good deal for a couple of years, and that's not going to age well when he's in his 40s. Or if we sign like a 3-year deal for, 13, 14 million, you'd think, well, probably good for a year, but then let's see. But I mean, they got the term is great for them, and they got it like more than fair or below market AAV. So like, yeah, big credit to LA. A very impressive work. On the Rangers side, it's tough. Like when you let the player talk to other teams and figure out what's out there from a negotiation standpoint, and then come back to you and say, this is where I'll go, and I'll only go to one team. Again, like their options were to not make the trade, I guess, or make this trade. I would say you would think that if this was the only offer out there, or like he only wanted to go to LA and this was their offer, why did he have to be traded now? You could still negotiate during the Olympic break. You could still have Adam Schefter drop a bomb, during the semifinal game that he's agreed to this deal, and after the freeze, it's going to happen, right? Like, I get that you wanted it off your plate and done, but there's no, and especially since there could be no other trades during the freeze, it's not like LA would go do something else and kind of allocate the cap space elsewhere. So I have this opinion with a lot of things. Like if you have time, you should use it. And if it's not the deal that's making you jump at it, like, might as well wait. So that would be my only take to the Rangers. In the end, though, it's possible they got to the same place. He only wanted to go to LA. And so they could have waited, through the break, the 10 days till the deadline, and still ended up with this trade. And if that's the case, sure, better to get it done now and move forward and save a few dollars on his contract, and also have some clarity of what you're going to do between the deadline. But those are my thoughts across the whole board there.
Yeah, for me, like I have a few different like thoughts, views, kind of takes on this. But to me, I think the one thing that you brought up too was like, why not wait till it gets closer to the deadline? Like you're already taking him out of that lineup, so there's not really a risk of injury. And maybe things change over the next 2-3 weeks where he opens up a couple other teams in addition to LA, because it's hard to argue that a lot of teams wouldn't sign up for this 2 times $11 million AAV deal. It almost feels like a slam dunk across the board. And then I was listening to my buddy Johnny Lazarus did like his take on it, big Rangers guy, and he basically said like it's kind of crazy because the Rangers probably also would have wanted to do a 2 times $11 million AAV, even given where they are currently. Like, I think you would sign up for that kind of deal at the beginning of the year. It seemed like that was kind of offered to him, and he kind of turned that down there. So maybe he was just over the situation there and wanted to move out. I was also talking to a buddy who works in the Rangers organization, who was obviously going to defend the move, but he was saying how like sometimes these deals, like when you have a guy who's basically only picked one location, you're negotiating against yourself. And you look at the return that Marchand got last year when he basically said he's only going to go to Florida. Like that return also seemed quote unquote underwhelming. So given the circumstances, you kind of make do with what you got there. But I mean, hopefully Greentree turns out to be a solid NHL player. Like he's having a good year in the OHL right now. And for the Rangers, it's tough because Panarin's one of your few premier assets that you can really get a strong return on, and you clearly didn't maximize that return to really replenish your prospect pool and your draft capital. And you really need to inject some youth into that lineup if you want to do this retool as opposed to a rebuild. I feel like this might set them back a little bit.
Yeah, I think those are good points. I mean, in terms of the return, I think Greentree is the key. I mean, those picks, like, let's just assume LA doesn't win 2 rounds. So you're talking either like a second or a third round pick. You'll see at the deadline players going for second or third round pick. They're nowhere even close, obviously, to Panarin. I mean, Bjugstad just went for not that much later than that, right? So the key is really Greentree. And like, if you really believe in Greentree, you'd obviously rather have someone that's already been drafted previously, so they're further along their development. It's really hard to determine what 17-year-olds are going to be when they're older. It's a little bit easier on a 18 or 19 or 20-year-old, right? So you'd rather have that ready-made prospect than a first-round pick. So if the choice was like basically Greentree or a first, like you're really betting that about Greentree and you think he's going to be really good. So obviously we're not scouts. We don't watch the OHL and can make that assessment. And that's where this trade will be determined by, like, is he a legit prospect, or would they been better off getting like one first round pick? Like, obviously, if you look at LA's perspective, you would think where they are in their cycle too, like they'd rather have given up a first round pick than Greentree. So it was probably like that was a give to give up the prospect. So you just hope that the Rangers picked the right prospect. They haven't had a good track record of developing their own first round picks, but maybe this will go the other way. Maybe acquiring a former first round pick goes a little better.
Yeah, less focus on their own organizational development. And then we'll see how Panarin fits in LA too. Like I think his style of play doesn't necessarily translate to like what LA's current style, but maybe they'll kind of work around him a little bit. Like he's gonna probably play on that top line. We'll see if he gets some run with Kempe there. And they got Byfield, Kopitar, and LaFerriere down the middle. So we'll see how it all plays out. It's an interesting move for LA. Like it feels like a win-win for them. Like not much risk. And then they
No.
get a dynamic player that they desperately needed to inject some offense into that lineup. And it's someone
Yeah.
said in the chat here, he wanted out and he wants to go to LA and period. Like that's basically it. Either you don't trade him to LA and he goes in free agency for nothing, or you get some assets back.
Yeah, and you compare it to Marchand. I mean, I would say Marchand had a great playoffs and is a great player, but I mean, Panarin is a better player. I mean, especially at
100%.
this age too, right? But yeah, it's a fair point. Like if you only have one place to make your sale to, right? Like you have to take the best deal that you can get. My argument back would be then if you didn't like this returner, you thought you could get better, just wait and see where you get to like by the end of the freeze. But fair. If this is the best you're going to get, and I think Ken Holland has a reputation too, like he doesn't BS other GMs, right? And if he's like, hey, this is all I'm offering now, a month from now, whatever, then you probably just take it from his word, and then you're making that decision. Do I want to do this, or am I going to try and pressure Panarin to maybe open it up to other teams? And if you felt like he was firm, then yeah, you might as well just take this deal now and move forward. And to your point, like seems very low risk for LA, especially with that contract. Yes, of course, if Greentree becomes like a perennial all-star, maybe you'll regret it if the Kings even miss the playoffs this year and are kind of continue to be a middling team over the next few years. But I mean, to give up what you gave, which is pretty low, and to take Panarin on a very reasonable deal on such a short term, while you still have some of these players that you think are part of your core to maybe make a final push before it's time to potentially do a rebuild, then yeah, you might as well. And look, if they miss the playoffs this year, next year starts terribly, maybe we do this again. And he's got a great contract and he's open to going to Florida next year, right? Or Tampa.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Rangers negotiated against themselves a little bit in the sense of they released a letter. They get all this information out that they're not going to offer Panarin a contract extension, and he has a full no move. So he's kind of in full control of this whole situation. So I think they lost a lot of leverage there. So it obviously hurt the return. But at the end of the day, like this is kind of the situation that they're in, and we'll see how it plays out for both sides. We can beat it over and over again, but until the games happen and until we see how Greentree pans out, we have no idea how to grade this trade. And so we'll kind of see how it plays out. Great trade, though. It's exciting to talk about Schefter dropping the bomb. I think just was a lot of fun in all of that. Let's move to the other trade that happened yesterday. And it honestly took me by surprise, like a big Devils fan. Like at first I was like, what the heck is going on? But the more I thought about it, the more I think it does make sense. And it's kind of a low risk move here. And that's Nick Bjugstad being traded from the St. Louis Blues to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for Thomas Bordeleau and a conditional 2026 fourth round pick. The condition is the lowest of New Jersey's 3 fourth rounders that they own. So they have their own, they have Dallas's, and they have Winnipeg's. Bjugstad has 6 goals, 7 points in 35 games this year. So not exactly an offensive dynamo, but he's only a couple years removed from like 45 points in 78 games, half a point per game player. He signed through next season at a reasonable $1.75 million cap hit. He'll be 34 at UFA. This gives New Jersey $5.9 million in current cap space with LTIR, taking in an additional $1.75 million. He's kind of the perfect 4C for a team like this. And obviously he's going to get in the lineup tonight. He's going to take over for Luke Glendening, who's going to be a healthy scratch. On the flip side, they didn't really give up much, right? A conditional fourth round pick, and it's the worst of the 3 that they own. So they had some capital to move out. And Bordeleau struggled this year. He has only 8 points in 35 games. He hasn't even gotten called up to New Jersey, even with all of their injuries. He's a 2020 draft pick, 38th overall. So he has that draft pedigree that teams like. He's a high-end pick, and so like people are hoping that he can kind of turn the corner. And he's an RFA with ARB rights at the end of the season. And I was listening to, I think it was Elliot Friedman actually on the Fan Hockey Show today, where he was basically saying that for New Jersey, like obviously they're not in a good spot and they don't want to be buyers, but sometimes when the room's down a little bit, it's just good to bring in a good pro. And that's how he labeled Bjugstad, as like just a good pro, a solid dude. And so, I think he's going to play a role there that makes sense for him. He's not a high-end contract, and, there's little risk for New Jersey.
Yeah, I think the cost is super low. Again, like fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. That once you get past the first couple rounds, I don't think it really matters. There's not much difference. Um, I think the fact that he has another year on his deal and at a reasonable cap it, that changes things for me. Like if he was a rental, I think I'd kind
Makes
of say
more
like,
sense.
why are you flushing a fourth round pick down the toilet? But I think considering his reputation and yeah, a 4C for 1.75 like next year, that's certainly a movable contract. Like at minimum, you can move that for free if you needed to. And if you're sellers again next year, like you could probably get a fourth or worst case, like a fifth or a sixth next year. So you probably don't have much like opportunity cost. And considering they have a bunch of fourth round picks as well, it kind of have that inventory to spend. So yeah, first my initial reaction was sort of why, but you look at it and with the extra year and a reasonable cap it, you see what happens, see if he's a fit. Maybe you're good next year and he's an important part of your bottom six, and if not, probably able to move him. Worst case to get out of it, but I think most likely recoup pretty close to what you paid.
Yeah, and like he has no trade protection, so he could be traded anywhere. He also could be sent down to the minors next season. You can bury, I think you said $1.225 million is the number next year. So
Yep.
that's basically 75% of his contract. He's also plus 50% in the faceoff dot. He's on pace for 11 goals this year. So as a 4C, I think like all those things are really reasonable, really solid. And so we'll see how it plays out. It's not a needle mover by any stretch of the imagination, and New Jersey's not going to be done with their moves, but it's a simple move, and it maybe helps the room a little bit. That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, he does have a great reputation.
Yeah, and yeah, love that. I love when you bring in good character guys in the room. It always helps out. Fuda was talking a lot about that on the interview we had, all about character and the kind of people you want in the room. Let us wrap it up here, Hart. We have one good question from a friend. His name is Joey out in Pennsylvania here. And he wanted to know if we can explain the differences and the math behind some of these calculations on the PuckPedia website. So when you go to a team page, there's 4 kind of cap numbers that you see right away. So you'll have projected cap space, you'll have current cap space, deadline cap space, and then the new one this year is projected playoff cap space. So maybe walk us through kind of the differences between the 4 of those calculations one by one.
So I get first off, across all of them, what the assumption is in all these numbers is that there's no moves between now and the rest of the season. So these all determine or show you what would be the situation, assuming no other moves. So
Which obviously
projected
isn't true, but it's like just to give a sense of like if no moves happen, this is like what the number would be.
and that's how the NHL system works to determine if you're cap compliant. You can't make a move that would make you projected to be out of compliance because you promise that you'll get compliant later. Their only leverage is because I get a lot of questions. What happens if a team is out of compliance with the salary cap? The answer is you just can't. They would not approve a move that would project you to be out of compliance, right? So that's the way that they manage the salary cap. So projected cap space is if no moves happen the rest of the year, how much cap space would you finish the season with? So most teams, that's a positive number. They're going to finish the year. They're going to finish the year with 1 million, 8 million. To get there, it's basically everything that's happened up to that point in the season. So all the guys that have been on the roster, prorated for how many days they've been on the roster. That gets you to today, and then you take the roster as of right now and assume that that's going to be the roster through the rest of the season. That's projected cap space, and so the place where that becomes the most important is at the end of the season. Again, that's how much space you would have. If you had performance bonuses, those performance bonuses are then anything that's earned is then added to the final team cap number and basically uses up that space. And if that space then becomes negative or is negative because you were over the cap due to LTIR, then any amount that you're over becomes a bonus overage charge for the next season. So that to me is kind of the most important thing to think about with projected cap space is that's the number that if there were no moves would be available at the end of the year to absorb potential performance bonuses.
Okay. And then what is current cap space?
So current cap space works off projected cap space. And it's basically if this is how much space we're projected to have for the end of the year, how much cap hit could we add right now that would use up all that space? So if a team has 1 million of cap space, projected cap space, halfway through the season at the 50% mark of the season, they could add 2 million of annual cap hit because that 2 million would get charged on that day for the remaining 50% of the season. So 1 million of that 2 million would hit the cap, and that would use up the 1 million of projected space. So the current cap space is just using the math of prorating how many days are remaining in the season of the projected cap space. So again, the easy way to think about it is like 3/4 of the way through the season, right? If the team has 1 million of projected cap space, then they would have 4 million of current cap space because the ratio is 4-1, or there's only a quarter of the season remaining. And yeah, so that's how current cap space works. We now, if you click on the cap projections tab, we actually have a slider, and you could take current cap space and you can slide it forward, and you see how that would grow each day, because with each day that passes, there's less remaining days, and therefore a team can fit more annual cap hit into their existing projected cap space.
And then that ties into deadline cap space. So basically you slide that, and then when you go to the slider on the trade deadline, that's how much salary a team can take on trade deadline day.
Exactly. So deadline space is just current cap space as of trade deadline day. There's 42 days remaining out of 192. So, if you took projected cap space and you multiplied it by 192 over 42, that's deadline cap space. And so, yes, that you can use our slider, and you can go from current cap space and keep sliding, and you get to the trade deadline day, and that will equal deadline cap space. So again, that is the annual cap hit that a team can add on deadline day. So when you think about like what a team can do, you'll say this guy has let's say he has a $4 million cap hit, right? That people will say, well, he's only going to get charged for 1 million against a team. So if you're going to think of it that way, you need to compare that to their projected cap space, because that's factoring in that 4 million is only going to be charged 1 million. If you want to just think of it like, hey, can we fit a $4 million player? Then you'd be looking at their deadline space or their current cap space, because now you're talking at the full cap hit. In front offices and in the NHL official language, they would call that the face value of the contract. So not prorating, but what is that face value? What is the player paid? What is their cap hit on the contract? The terminology that we use publicly is the annual cap hit that the contract carries. And Perfect. Then moving into projected playoff cap space, this is brand new for this season. That's based on the new CBA. There's going to be a salary cap in the playoffs with some different rules of how that's calculated. And so all we're doing is we're taking the lineup as of right now. We have our depth chart tab is always tracking the lineups for the upcoming game. And we're just, because the playoff cap hit is only based on the players dressed for the lineup, whereas in the regular season, the salary cap is based on all the players on the NHL roster. So it includes healthy scratches. It includes injured players. It includes suspended players. But in the playoff, the salary cap is only players that are dressed. So that number, we're just taking the exact roster for the upcoming game that we have on our depth chart. We're factoring in there are some calculations for how dead cap charges are calculated for the playoff cap. So we're using that. And we're saying, if this was the lineup for a playoff game, this is how much space they would be. Now, having said that, that the lineup for the game on a Thursday morning is not going to be the same as a playoff lineup. You have some injuries, you have some things like that to think about. So it's not a perfect representation. But if you look at your team's upcoming lineup and you think, hey, this could be their playoff lineup, look at that playoff cap space number, because I would tell you if it would be compliant in the playoffs. If you want to have some more ways to play with it and look at your lineup, you can go into our Puck GM mode and you can play with your roster. And at that point, you'll see what the projected playoff cap hit number would be for the lineup that you're using. But that's what we're showing for the projected playoff cap space, is taking the lineup as of the upcoming game and saying what that would mean based on the new playoff salary cap calculations.
Yeah, I was going to mention Puck GM. You can always go in and customize. And I had to text our buddy Steve Dangle today because they were breaking down the Panarin trade and they were showing the PuckPedia depth chart on their breakdown, but they didn't have Panarin on their roster yet. And I was like, Steve, you got to go to Puck GM. You don't just take like the current depth chart of yesterday's lineup. You go to Puck GM, you put him in the lineup, you mess around a little bit. So yeah, he liked that. He had a good laugh at that. But yeah, no, that's all good stuff, Hart. I think it's a good explanation. The salary cap is simple. I would say like the first like 60% of it is simple, and then the remaining like 40% of it is like very complicated, very nuanced. So I think it's good to get the casual fans to understand like the basics of the salary cap, and then kind of go in a little bit to your nuance. And like you mentioned with the bonus overages and the 4 different ways that you guys are calculating it on the site, so that you can kind of track your team. So I think all this is fantastic stuff.
I would just say the key is like when you were in school and you learned about fractions, because basically it's all each day is 1 divided by 192 times the cap hit, and you're just adding that up, and you're using that math to figure out how much space is remaining. So the whole NHL salary cap is based on fractions, and 100 in this season is 192 days, and prorating everything by that.
Yep. And then each season has different amount of days in it. So next season might be 186. Next season might be 198. Like you just kind of go season by season with that calculation. But yeah, that is all the time we have for you guys today. Great episode. Big trade for the New York Rangers and the Los Angeles Kings yesterday. Love recapping that. It obviously took the hockey world by storm yesterday. Make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube page, PuckPedia. We post all our stuff there. We have the link tree. You follow all of this stuff on Twitter, but then you go into the PuckPedia site too. We have Content Hub up there coming soon. Some cool site features, obviously, getting unloaded every week or so. It feels like there's a new cool site feature on PuckPedia. We did this contract sliders last week. I'm sure there's some new stuff coming out in the near future. So make sure you're going to the site. Trade deadline's a big time. So we're about a month out from that. So make sure you're following along, checking your favorite teams. Anything else, Hart, before we sign off?
No, enjoy the Olympics, and just because there can't be any trades official, I would expect that there's a lot of trade talks, and I would expect there's some signings. So I think we'll still have some news and some reports to talk about.
Perfect. And yep, make sure you're rooting for your favorite team in the Olympics. It's going to be an exciting time for best on best Olympics in, I think, 12 years. So we're looking forward to it. But that's all the time we have for you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your week.
PuckPedia.com.